Ay, ay, ay. Alrighty. Let's see if this works. Alright, getting the right angle. Gotta show Kara's picture, because that was one of my most priceless treasures in this house. When I was moving and deciding what should... Sheesh, what is with this webcam? When I was deciding what should stay and what should be thrown away, that picture was one of those things where I'm like, I'm definitely not throwing that away. Because that is quite literally a sign of friendship. Because at the time Kara gave me that picture, I was already in a relationship. And that was her way of saying, relationships, mationship, that can't get in the way of our friendship. So I am so, so, so happy that she was so darn stubborn. Oh man. Alrighty, so I hope my notifications are working. Either that or you guys are just curious, browsing YouTube. You're like, ooh, Paul. Because I don't really like sports. So I'm just gonna talk on here instead. And if no one joins me, I'll be like, the Super Bowl happens. Not everyone likes it. Or if you're me, then you might only like it for the food. Thumbnails for live streams. Gotta be the worst. Okay, yeah, I don't know what the deal is on these live streams. Whenever I try to make a good thumbnail, I always look like I'm either tired or bored or both. Ugh. Also, are you guys okay with this lighting? Because it looks like my t-shirt is like so oversaturated, the way the webcam and the lights are on. But if I turned off the lights, then that would probably be really bad for my eyesight. So I'm just gonna roll with it. If you guys have a problem, I can see if I can adjust. Behind me, you may have noticed that I got a little bit of a different decoration. I got that from, I think it was my brother for Christmas. It's actually it's actually supposed to be a Bluetooth device for hearing my musical stuff out of Mario, but I don't have any Bluetooth devices at the moment. So he was like, "Well, if you don't have any Bluetooth devices, you can just use it as a decoration." So that's exactly what I'm doing. Also, greetings to the two people who are watching this so far. That honestly sounds so terrible for so many other people who stream, but for me, honestly, I would consider even 5 people being a lot on my types of streams. So if 5 is a lot, then 2 is adequate, assuming that they're actually there. And if you want to just listen, if you are just like, ew, comments, no thanks, I'm not really the camera type of person, that's totally fine. I mean, speaking in front of a camera is a learned art because I was a public speaker before I joined YouTube. I technically haven't stopped public speaking. It's just that no one's really asked me to do a presentation since February of 2020, to be exact. So almost a year since I did my last speech. And I'd like to say my last speech was actually a really cool success. It was it was very on the spot, so it wasn't like this super arranged presentation like in the past. It was when I was chaperoning a conference, and there were about 50 high schoolers, not including not including the adults that were supervising the module. And I had said to the keynote speaker, "Hey, I'm your assistant for the afternoon. So if you need me to say a few words to the teenagers, then I'm more than thankful to give you a hand." And she, near the very end of the module, is just like, "Hey, Paul, you mind talking to the teenagers for about 3 minutes?" I'm like, "Oh, heck yeah." Sadly, the people that took video footage of it haven't contacted me yet. So I'm just gonna imagine, oh, hello, fourth person. Welcome to the stream. I was just talking about the last time I got a public speaking opportunity and how that actually really helped with my YouTube channel, me not completely cowering and shaking in fear every time I get in front of the webcam. Oh, hey, Zoe. Yeah, I used to like sports a little bit, but I kind of just eventually got bored because I realized it's just a bunch of grown men throwing a piece of rubber around, and it's not that much fun. Like, I don't mind playing sports every now and then, but by every now and then I mean more like once a year at most. So I'll occasionally dabble in ultimate frisbee or bowling. Sometimes maybe playing catch with my friends if they have a baseball glove. But apart from that, I'm just not really a sports guy at all. How are you doing today, Zoe? What have you been doing to, I guess, not completely lose your mind with all the other sports addicts out there? Not to say it's bad to like sports, but it's just some people like it, some people don't. Oh, thank you. One of my tricks for not saying well, it was a combination of observing my best friend and how he says like every other 5 words, but also realizing that there's a certain art to pausing. So that's why you may notice that in a lot of my YouTube videos, I make these very deliberate pauses because it sounds better to be like, now, as I was saying, getting on to the next subject, it's easier to just, instead of saying, you see, what was I saying again? You could see how it totally sounds so much better and flowing. Homework and I haven't had homework in so long that I almost forgot how to do it. So I'd probably be in a world of trouble if I ever had to do that. But good for you on doing chores. I usually have to be told that the chores exist because I'm not very good at figuring stuff out on my own. So I think that really helps. Ooh, thank you for the like, whoever did it. I really appreciate it. Why, thank you, Zoe. I really appreciate the comment. Would you like me to give you tips on how maybe you can do public speaking if that ever crosses your radar, for lack of a better word? Well, I suppose I could just say it here in the stream because that's what a stream is all about. But I feel like asking permission is the more polite thing to do anyway. So it's up to you. Ow! Oh, you folks should know. I better put this in the chat so that latecomers can tell. I Yeah, so the other day I was at the swimming pool and there was a huge puddle of water and I tripped and fell backward. And so I hurt both of my elbows and I also hurt not quite the tailbone, but whatever the bone next to the tailbone is. I injured that really badly. So if I'm wincing and acting as if I'm constantly, are you serious? Is this the same Nick that I knew from eons ago? Because welcome, so good to see you. Yeah, I'm a very fast typer. Not only am I a fast typer, but I'm also a fast reader. Like when I'm playing Paper Mario, I can read 2 paragraphs by the time my brothers finish a couple of words. So, Zoe, a couple of tips for public speaking are, first off, it helps if you pretend that the audience isn't there because I'm generally not very good in crowds. I'm the type of guy who, good. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you could be here, Nick. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, it was fun, apart from the fact that I fell. But at least the good news was that the lifeguard on duty was literally right next to me when I fell. So, like, how lucky is that that you fall on the ground while you're literally right next to a lifeguard? Like, you, it, I don't know. Like, I feel like God was really working in me that day. And I kind of want to make a whole video about this story. So, you guys are getting early access here. But basically, at the previous swimming pool that I went to back when I lived in the old house, the pool was, well, let's just say it was very small and cramped, and it also didn't have any lifeguards. So hypothetically, if that kind of scenario had happened back then, I would have had to just be fortunate enough to have someone walk into the room and notice that I was in pain and try to escort me somewhere. Whereas this, there were 2 lifeguards on duty, and the temporary manager of the pool was in her office. So there were at least 3 trained professionals who knew the general gist of how to help me. And again, the lifeguard was in her chair right here. I was about here where I tripped. So probably give or take about 6 feet apart from each other. So the timing was just really impeccable. But yeah, I'm actually a really good swimmer. I just didn't swim for several years because I was so afraid of the water, but I'm working on overcoming those past burdens and past anxiety and trying to become more of, I guess you could say more of a neutral stance, because I don't think I'll ever get to the point where I'm never gonna cower around the water, but I'm at least gonna get to the point where, like, say, every time there's a beach scene in the movies, I'm not gonna be, like, having this huge heart attack crisis. I'm just gonna be like, just like seeing a pizza. So, getting back to what I was saying about public speaking, and you guys feel free to interrupt me all you want, because I do love getting on tangents when I stream. But one of the biggest things when I'm public speaking is I pretend that the audience isn't there. Why, thank you, Zoe. I really appreciate all the people in my life that are encouraging me on this, because I figured, in the Catholic Church, they kind of have this love-hate relationship with the water, despite that the Catholic Church also has theology of the body. So weird. But a lot of Catholics have been really supportive, and a lot of Catholics have even been with me during the swimming to help me get over my fears. So I'm really grateful that my religion is not being a stick in the mud like sometimes they can be. So getting back to the public speaking angle, pretending the audience isn't there was the biggest thing that helped me, because I don't really like crowds. I still don't really like crowds. I get really nervous when there's more than 3 people around, just because I feel like when people are in a crowd, there's a lot more of a group persona as opposed to the person genuinely being themselves. And I value people that are authentic and honest. And when a person is, I guess, putting on what the group needs as opposed to just being themselves, I can't really think of a better adjective, that throws me off from having an authentic conversation. But when I'm public speaking, since I'm speaking to an audience, that initially might scare me because it's like, oh my gosh, lots of people. But usually what I do is I either look over their heads or I focus on another object that's close to their eye line, but not quite. Like I might look at, say, someone's hair, or I might notice the ceiling. And sometimes I've even incorporated that ad lib into my speeches where I'll say, hey guys, I just noticed that ceiling panel. Let me relate it to what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm a very I would agree with you, Zoe. I'm a very detail oriented person. And so it's pretty rare for me to miss a detail. And if I do, there's usually a really good explanation. Like it might be the fact that I'm at GameStop and I'm not really much of a gamer outside of the Switch. So obviously I wouldn't notice the Xbox exhibit because I'm not trying to look at it. But generally speaking, if something is within my range of vision, I'm going to at the very least have a passing glance at it. It's very rare for someone to like wave their hand in front of me. I'm like, huh, what did you say? Usually it's only when I'm like sick, or if like something happened that put me in shock, where I would legit not pay attention like that. Like at the pool the other day. After I fell, I was in a little bit of a shock mode just because they mentioned having to get the ambulance, and I'm afraid of needles. So obviously that was causing me such pain that they were asking me questions like, Paul, what is your emergency contact's phone number? And I was like, huh? Say what? Which is very, very unlike me. I'm normally very in the moment and aware. So in moments when I'm sort of out of my element, that's the only time when I would really not notice something. The other tip I would have for public speaking is sort of going inside yourself and recognizing your own inherent talents as opposed to trying to think what the other person wants. So instead, you think, what am I specifically very good at and can be confident? So, like, for example, if I am going into a Smash tournament, obviously I know I'm going to be terrible at it because I'm very much a casual Smash player. I like to play with items on. I most of the time like to play with hazards on, and I don't like stages that are flat like Final Destination. In fact, one of my favorite stages in Smash Brothers would probably have to be, I'd really like to say Garrick Mach Monastery. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Three Houses addict, which I am, but it feels like it has enough hazards, but not too many to the point where casual players would be bothered by it. Like most of it is just you can break stuff and the stage changes, but it's not like Great Cave Offensive where it's chaotic. But yeah, like competitive players just suck all the fun out of Smash because they don't like spirits, they don't like items, they don't like all the Nintendo fan service. They're just all they care about is the technical aspects, like the frame animations and the lag. And I'm just like, oh come on, I'm too busy fanboying over the fact that Banjo's in this game, and you're gonna tell me about input lag? That's not Nintendo-y at all. That's technical. Um, yeah, I've never been in a Smash tournament before, and I probably don't want to, especially after I've heard all of the scandalous things that happened at those tournaments. I don't think I've ever talked about this on my channel, and if I have, please let me know, because I tend to repeat stuff a lot. But I used to really like Zero, capital Z, lowercase e, capital R, lowercase zero. I really liked his channel a lot because he had a more you've heard the Zero drama? Well, I actually haven't heard too much about it, so if you want to fill me in, go ahead. Just try to keep this stream between PG-13. Try not to mention any R-rated stuff. But I liked his channel because he had a very rational, like, sort of tell it by the facts rather than insert his own personal opinions into things. And he would often take apart the haters of something in the Smash community and talk about why their logic is faulty. And in some ways, it actually inspired me as I was making my own Smash videos. Because, like, when Byleth was revealed in Smash Brothers, I was super excited about it, but not too many other people were. In fact, it had the highest dislike ratio in Smash reveal history. And I was saying that the haters were all being very, yeah, well, that's not just Zero, Zoe. That's pretty much everyone who's in the competitive smashing. And that's not to say all of them are like that. I'm sure there are wonderful, family-friendly competitive smashers that, treat kids really well and aren't secretly criminals. But the fact remains that it's really easy to get away with this kind of thing when well, other YouTubers have done videos in a much better format than this because they can say, like, if you take into account this person's childhood and you take into account the amount of socialization they had prior to being in Smash, it's a lot like celebrities where they don't realize exactly how popular they're becoming and it leads to them more or less rebelling. So the point I'm trying to make is that I don't want to say everyone who's a competitive smasher is bad. But I think there's more of a breeding ground for terrible controversy in their scene over the casual scene, where the worst you get in our community is you get people giving death threats to the creator because their favorite character didn't get in, or you've got people complaining, oh no, not another Fire Emblem character. When I'm saying it may be another Fire Emblem character, but it's more Fire Emblem music, another Fire Emblem stage, more Fire Emblem spirits, another Fire Emblem classic mode. And yet, because of one character, you're going to be upset about the other four positives? That's terrible logic. That's like saying one pepperoni on your pizza is brown, and you can't just pick it off and eat the rest of the pizza. It's just so stupid. So, Zoe, do you play any games of your own, or is it just your roommate that's much of a gamer? Nick, I hope I'm not ignoring you in all of this. I just tend to talk faster than people type. So I'm really sorry if you guys feel like you're not getting a word in. There was one live stream back in my old house where my internet was so faulty that I, I ended up just, oh, hello, Kaede. Glad you could finally make it to a live stream and see the real deal. Assuming you don't think I'm secretly draped in a green screen and this is just an illusion. Oh, Guitar Hero. My brother used to be really into that. He he was so good at Guitar Hero that he actually beat every single song on Expert that was ever released on the Wii versions because he didn't really get into the ones on other systems, but he had every single Guitar Hero that ever came onto the Wii. Yeah, it's hard to believe that I'm the way that I am, but I assure you I am very much me, with hair falling in my face too. So I guess that debunks the rumor that, that I'm losing my hair, because otherwise I wouldn't be constantly trying to brush that smush out of the way. I can play piano too. I can play piano only one-handed, though. I'm still not too much of an expert, but I can play guitar really well. In fact, my guitar is right behind the webcam, and I've even written my own songs on the guitar, which Kaide, if you're interested, they're actually some of the earliest videos I've ever made on this channel if you want to see me play guitar. Yeah, I would say it's kind of hard because whenever I try to do hand-eye coordination, the most I can do is like dun 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 on the left hand. On the right, I'm being all melodic. Yeah, I'm kind of like that too, where I can play a select few songs on expert, but hard is really the most consistent difficulty. I'm pretty sure the only song where I have to play on medium is what was it called? Fire of the Storm? It was that one by Dragon Force. Wow, we got 6 people here. For me, that's the equivalent of, like, having 100 or 1,000 people on the stream, so I'm really grateful that you're all here. Kaede, I was wondering, um, how do I word this now that you're actually here? Yeah, I do like pizza a lot, so I use pizza analogies quite often. Kaede, I was wondering, you made a video all about me, which I thought was beautifully animated, and I really liked how you made my avatar, but I still don't get what you were actually trying to say. So I'm wondering if you could like enlighten me as to like what was the point of that video? Not saying I don't like it, but it's kind of like when you're watching a Japanese anime without English subtitles and you're like, okay, I don't understand Japanese, so I don't get what is going on here. So if you could explain that, that would be very great. I give you full permission to use whatever language you need. Just this once. Just this once. Because I really don't want to get in the habit. You just made it because you wanted an excuse to show off my long locks. I mean, that's a pretty good excuse. I guess the longest my hair has ever gotten was down to here back in 2012. I don't plan on getting it that long ever again, but I do plan on keeping it at least around this level-ish for the rest of my life, or until my hair falls out, if it falls out, which most of my friends tell me it's probably not gonna fall out, so my dad's hasn't fallen out, so and my grandpa on my mom's side still had a full head of hair, so they say it's usually the mom's genes that determine baldness, so it looks like I'm pretty set. I mean, my hairline's receded a little bit, but not so much where it looks like I'm already becoming an even older man than I claim that I am. So, Kaede, have you actually written any of your own piano music? By the way, for the rest of you watching, Kaede's username is actually a reference to the protagonist of a game called Danganronpa Killing Harmony. And Kaede is actually my favorite protagonist in the Danganronpa series so far, just because she already has an established personality. And I really appreciate how she's so confident. Like she feels like she's already a developed character. And then there's more development that goes along. So it's kind of like when you go into the second book of a series and you're able to appreciate how much that character has developed, but rather than say sticking to the first Harry Potter book and making your way to the seventh, it's like you're jumping into the seventh and seeing Harry as he's developed. That's how I felt about Kaede when I first saw her in Killing Harmony, is that she was basically a book 7 Harry because she already had so much about her that was well defined. Oh, that is really cool, Kaede. I would really like to listen to them if they don't have too much mention of needles in the songs, because that's my worst fear. In fact, you were a little bit late for the stream, but the other day I actually tripped when I was at the swimming pool, and they thought that I had a concussion, which it turned out I didn't, because I didn't even hit my head. But when they mentioned we're gonna go get the ambulance, when they mentioned they had to get the ambulance, that's when I started puking and getting dizzy, and my hearing started to go a little bit, was because I was afraid of the needles. But generally, I'm a pretty tough guy. Not too much phases me, which is probably why in a few of the Killing Harmony streams, you might have said, Paul, how are you so heartless? It's just because I've been a depression recover what is the proper term for that? I've been recovered from depression for this March, it'll be 5 years. Yeah, 5 years. And I guess you could say not much phases me after going through that level of intense sorrow. When you're thinking that God hates you and the world hates you, it's like, yeah, seeing a bunch of pixels get mutilated, it's really hard for me to take that seriously when real life is so much more tragic. That is great to hear, Kaede. You know, if you want to give a couple of details, whatever you're comfortable with here in the chat, I can think of at least one person watching this right now who would be really excited to hear about another person who recovered from depression, because that was actually one of my most popular videos on my channel. Speaking of popular videos, I was actually looking at my analytics the other day and I received quite a shock. And the big shock there was that I was looking at which of my videos were my all-time most popular viewed stuff ever. And it seems to change every single year. Sleeping does help, yes. I'm also more of a night owl, so when I'm streaming in the afternoon, I'm usually a lot more tired. But now I'm pretty good. This is usually the time of night where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to party. Let's talk to people. During the day, I'm just like, leave me alone, guys. I'm taking my nap. So I'm really glad I got to do it today. What was I saying earlier? Um, yeah, yeah, that's fair. What was I saying earlier before I became a night owl? Well, I guess I'll just change the subject until I can remember straight. Oh yes, thank you, Zoe. Leave it to you to get my memory back on track. So I was looking at my YouTube analytics the other day, and I was seeing which video was the most viewed video I ever had. And ironically, it was my it was my video where I archived every Amiibo song for Fire Emblem Three Houses. Because apparently no other YouTube thought to do that, which it's like, that's weird. Because back in the Wii U days, like everyone was into the craze of here are all the Amiibo rewards you can get. And I tried to do that with Breath of the Wild, but my footage got corrupted. So I just thought, this will be probably one of my lesser performing videos because my video game reviews are by far the lowest performing videos on my entire channel. Usually I'm lucky if I can hit in the triple digits of viewage. But that video was over 6,000 views, which for me, that's a lot. That's a cool title, Kaede. Um, I looked at some of the thumbnails on your channel because I was curious what kind of stuff you made, and it definitely. Now, forgive me if I'm being rude, but you seem like the type of YouTuber where you're more of a you film whatever you feel like, as opposed to having a definitive pattern like I usually do. Which is not to say I always film the same stuff on my channel, but I generally think through what I'm going to film before I film it. Like a lot of times when I release a video, I'm like spending all night the previous day thinking it over. And that's actually what gets me to sleep is saying, ooh, I bet this will make a nice video. And a lot of these videos are either in the works right now or I'm just waiting for the proper timing to release them so that, like, if I release them today, that would be silly because so many people are watching the Super Bowl. But as you guys are proving right now, you must apparently like my mug more than the Super Bowl. So that really is a big honor for me. But yeah, so then I looked at my next most popular video, and it was my review of Evergate, which also surprised me because I'm generally really late to the party when I review video games because I don't get review copies. I am never sponsored. I've never worked with any company before. Yeah, yeah, that was definitely the impression I got on your channel. So yeah, so when I reviewed Evergate, it was a really rare case for me because I bought it. I think it was the day after it was announced, And as I was playing it, I actually had no frame of reference for help because the game was so new that no one had reviewed it. Well, actually, I think one person had reviewed it, but no one reviewed it on YouTube. And no one had made walkthroughs. So I had to figure out everything by myself. And then it turned out that I actually made erroneous statements in the review. And someone had to point out that they were errors. And I said, cut me some slack. I'm the very first person ever on YouTube to review this game. And so I had no way of checking my facts because the game was so new that I don't even think they had a Wikipedia article for it. And to think that's probably why it was so popular was because generally speaking, to get your videos popular on YouTube, take this with a grain of salt because I oftentimes will do the exact opposite of YouTube advice because I don't like being popular too much. But one of the things that really helps is if you do something that's trending, but you do it in a way that no one else has done. So, like, Just Dance reviews are a dime a dozen, but when I reviewed the Wii versions of Just Dance 2019 and 2020, those were huge hits because everyone wanted to know, like, what's the Switch version going to be like? What's the PS4? Here I am reviewing the Wii, which is like 2006 hardware. So they're like, what? There's a Wii version? In the same way, no one else had reviewed Evergate. And it was a very highly talked about game in the presentation. And because I was the only one that reviewed it, I was the one that people went to see if it was worth their money. And so it ended up that and my Three Houses Amiibo videos were so unique that because no one else made content like that, they got a lot of views. And I wasn't even trying. Like the videos that I actually want to get the most views are actually usually the videos that I fail the most on. And the videos that I think, oh, no one will care about this are the ones that explode in popularity. So I'm not the best person to ask for YouTube legal advice, but it, if you happen to get a game early access, that's a good way to go. Katie, would you ever do? Ooh, I just had a really cool idea. Kaede, one of these days, I really hope that. Well, you also seem like you're fairly new to YouTube when I was looking at the dates in which you started, whereas I've been on YouTube since 2013. Hello, Solus Griffiths. I think I saw one of your comments earlier on my videos, and I really appreciate the fact that you actually reached out instead of just keeping your opinions to yourself. I haven't played Hades yet because I'm not really a fan of roguelikes. The only exception I can think of is Cadence of Hyrule. Yes, I'm so thankful that you're here. Welcome. I I wanted to play Hades, but then when I heard that it was a roguelike and also procedurally generated, something in me just said it doesn't seem like my kind of game. But if it has an orchestral soundtrack, that'll get me. The reason why I got Cadence of Hyrule is because because it was Zelda. You know, I'm a huge Zelda fan, and there were these really cool spanking remixes of Zelda tunes, which is weird because I didn't like the Zelda remixes in Hyrule Warriors. But Cadence of Hyrule, something about it just said, these are remixes I can get behind. You say you're old, I'm pretty old too, so we might have a competition to see which one of us will hit the grave first. And a lot of people say, Paul, you're not that old. What the heck? But then I always clarify that I'm old compared to the average audience that I attract. So that's usually the defining detail that I'm trying to mention there. That's a cool story, Kaede, because that's actually why I joined YouTube too. It was just to watch other people, and then I said, you know what? I wanna make stuff. I'd rather not say my exact age, Zoe, just because I've heard that people can use that against you, but I will say that I am an adult and over the age of 20. So make of that what you will. And I'll also say that I'm younger than 46. But I'm not going to tell you exactly how old I am, just between the ages of 20 and 45. You guys can take your guesses. But yeah, if I was actually a kid on YouTube, that would be breaking so many rules. So I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to get in trouble or anything like that. Huh, very nice, Kaede. I am well, I I was just given a medical checkup. Well, you were here late, Solus, so I don't think you heard the story. But, I actually did have a medical team check up on me yesterday because I tripped and fell at the swimming pool, and they thought I had a concussion. And when they were doing, like, vital checks and all that, they said that the only part of me that was slightly abnormal was my heart rate, but they said that's probably from the shock of falling as opposed to a legitimate problem. They even said, "You seem like the type of person who's fairly active," and I'm like, "Yeah, I only work out once a week." And even then, it's not really much of a workout because this body is not exactly buff. But that's great that you can guess. Yeah, I'm all right. Basically, the only thing that happened were I grazed a little bit of my elbow, which you probably can't even see with the light of the my lights and my webcam, and then one of the bones right next to the tailbone. Again, I don't know the exact name. That's still hurting, but apart from that, I'm totally fine. I just can't really run around and bend over as well as I normally can, but I'm sure once it heals, I'll be back to normal in no time. But I used to be far, far worse. Like, Solus, did you watch my Eucharistic miracle video? Because if you haven't, that might give you a lot more context. But to give you the short story here, ever since I was a teenager, I've had such I had such bad neck and back problems that like prior to 2018, I could only raise my arm like this high before I was in excruciating pain. And then like I could barely bend over. But then in 2018, we were having Eucharistic adoration and um again, I'm trying not to give too many details because in a live stream, I don't have a time to prepare all the finer details of the speech. But long story short, we were having Eucharistic adoration. They said, "Everyone who needs healing, come forth." I did. And like a couple of seconds later, I felt this warmth in my shoulders and then it spread down to my back. And the next thing I knew, I was cured. And then I did 10 push ups in front of everybody, which before that, I could maybe get through like between 2 to 4 before passing out. And I could actually lift my arms all the way up and feel no pain. So God Himself literally channeled young energy back into me so that I could feel like a proper person my age. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, Kaede, vomiting, it's not really my favorite thing either, but I really appreciate when I do vomit, not because I like the sensation, but because usually after you vomit is when you start feeling better. So, like, whenever in the rare occasions when I actually would get sick in the past, which wasn't very much, I have a very good immune system. That's probably why I haven't caught the virus yet. After I would throw up would be immediately when I realized I'm on the home stretch now. And 9 times out of 10, that was right. I was on the home stretch. But yes, God Himself literally straightened out my back and made it so that, like, before there was this really obnoxious bump right here that stuck out, but now it feels like it's more or less smoothed out, and now, woo. Whereas when I was more like your age, Kaede, I could basically go like this high. Now I can go this high. All that from what the Protestants call a piece of bread. So make of that what you will. A miraculous piece of bread if you're Protestant, and if you're Catholic, Jesus Himself in the flesh looking like bread. Oh, that's right. I totally forgot to respond to your Hades comment. The reason why I don't take donations at present is because I'm not sure how to arrange it in such a way that it would be anonymous where I live. Because I don't want, like, I would like it if people would, like, say, send me games they want me to play, but then they'd also know where I live. So that's the big thing that's holding me back. But if there's a way to make, like, a private account where it lies about where I live, or if it's just like, this is Paul from the internet, then maybe. I used to have a PayPal account, but then I forgot how to use it. So I ended up just ignoring every future email that I got. And even if you did donate Solus, I would insist that the money would have to go to a very, very specific purpose on this channel. Because one thing that I set out to avoid when making this channel is I don't want to get paid while I'm doing YouTubing. This is a hobby. I do not want to make it become a source of income. As much as I really need the money right now, I also don't want to resort to having YouTube as the means of the money. But if I can figure that out, I'll get back to you on that because that sounds like it could be a nice compromise. But I would make it so that if the donators did give me money on PayPal, 100% of the proceeds would go towards either charity or a game you want me to try out. And it would also have to be on a Nintendo system. That's basically my description. That's right, Kaede. Is that why you joined, or are you basically imitating what I said in my description? Because that's more or less exactly why I decided to stream. But yes, I'll give your comments some thought, Solus. But don't expect me to do it anytime soon because I'm not very good at figuring things out on my own. But once I do get it up, I'll probably make an entire video on my channel saying, hey guys, I have a PayPal, but here's how you must use it." Well, that would be much appreciated. Much appreciated. So just I guess just if you're subscribed to my channel, then stay tuned. Kaede, I'm really glad you visited because I think I think I come across as so butlerish in chat, whereas when I'm in person, I can be a little bit more lively. That's not to say I'm being fake when I'm in a stream, because I definitely feel like I'm always my authentic self, no matter what. But in the streams where you see me, Kaede, I'm generally one of the oldest people there. So I generally like to, I guess, show an air of maturity so that people don't think that I'm secretly a 16-year-old, which it's like, oh, when I was 16, I was messed up. Also, thank you for the 4 likes, guys. I'm generally not much of a like and subscribe type of guy, but this really means a lot to me because I generally am so overly critical of how I present myself in streams that I think I'm surprised to even get one person watching this. But you guys are, I don't know how to describe it in good words, but you guys are very, I appreciate your loyalty. I really do. Honestly, Kaede, I got the impression that you were a fluffy hyper girl from the moment we met. So, I don't know where you got the impression that I would think that you're calm because you didn't as calm at all. Which I don't mind fluffy hyper girls. In fact, some of my best friends I would describe as that personality. Like if you've watched my videos a lot, and I always talk about Danielle, like she could give you a run for your money with how insanely energetic she is. In fact, a lot of times when I do my imitation videos, it's always her voice that I'm imitating because she's just like this, "Hi, Paul, how's it going?" type of personality, and I love it. I'll take your word for it. I haven't been to school in so long that I've kind of forgotten how to talk to school systems. Like, I bet if I were to go up to a school principal right now, I'd probably say, like, "You are the principal, right? Have principals' roles changed since the days of old?" Because back when I went to school, like, I only went to the principal's office once, and I don't even remember what happened. So I think it was probably just more of a formality, like, "Paul, I need you to sign this paper so that we can let you go on some school trip or whatnot." Because fun fact, I did go to school for a little while. I was just homeschooled most of my life. That's the catcher. I When I went to in-person school, there were only 4 people in my classroom, so that really helped with me developing my social skills a lot. Because I'm generally not a group person, but I wouldn't say that makes me the super reclusive hermit. I just prefer more one-on-one intimate gatherings or gatherings where, like, there's an atmosphere of control. JRPGs. That's a hilarious story, Zoe. I hope they've forgiven you since then. Let's see, what are you saying here? JRPGs. Yeah, I see what you mean there because I'm getting into Dragon Quest XI again. In fact, it's actually on my Switch right now in standby. But man, that game is so stinking long. Like I've been playing it for so long, and I feel like I'm just barely scratching the surface. But I generally do like JRPGs a lot. Like I'm a huge fan of Fire Emblem, as you can, well, maybe not from this angle, but right below these set of amiibos right here, this shelf is like basically entirely Fire Emblem memorabilia. And I'm a huge fan of the first two Paper Marios. And I also really liked Radiant Historia, Perfect Chronology. So those are the RPGs that I've played. Oh, and Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Okay, let's see. I got to catch up to some of this. Let's see. Yeah, I generally don't consider myself too masculine, and I tend to hang around with mostly females in my life. In fact, I can only think of 3 good male friends that I hang out with regularly, and one of them is my best friend. So I don't know. I think it's because I treated females horribly in my past, and so I hang out with mostly females now to make up for it and become a better person. Thank you, Solus. I'm glad you've been paying attention. Dragon Quest XI is the perfect JRPG for people that want games to go back to the way they were, but just with a new coat of paint. That's Dragon Quest XI in a nutshell. It feels like a 1985 game, but it's a 2017 game. Okay, I'm really glad you like Sonic, Kaede, because I like Sonic too. I'm just terrible at it. What do you mean by one of my battles? You mean like if I'm playing Smash Brothers? That would be really cool if you did. Oh, that battle. Yeah, that entire thing that Dan said, that was Dan was that speech he gave was completely improvised. All I said when we were planning that video, I just said, "Dan, you film and Evelyn and I will sword fight." And everything that Dan said in front of the camera was completely him being silly. I did not tell him to say any of that. Oh, that's cool. Oh, wow. I was in Ohio the other day and we were shopping for video games. So if I'm ever in the Ohio area, I will definitely keep an eye out for a Nintendo Quest. Because I really do like retro video games. Not as much as most people do. Like, I really don't like NES and SNES games, with a handful of exceptions. I'm mainly a Nintendo 64 and forward type of guy. Kaede, if I ever meet you in real life, I will do a sword fight with you. But I don't think that's possible because not too many people on my channel live near me. So maybe it can be a dream for when maybe I can have a dream one day. Did you mean to say talk to you later? Ooh, Warp Zone. Wait a minute. I think I have been to Warp Zone. I don't think I've been to the one in Ohio though, but there is a Warp Zone where I'm from. Isn't it like a comics shop? And you guys mostly specialize in like Marvel games and stuff? Because I have been there and I really liked that place. I just always forgot their number, so I never remembered how to get back. And then the one time that I did say to my friend, let's go to the store, I forgot the name, and so we drove to another place instead. Well, Kaede, it's one thing to be optimistic, but it's another to actually make it possible. Like I could easily say, sure, I'll go across the United States. Do I have the money? No. So I can't just make money fall from the sky. I'm really glad you watched that dog poop video, Kaede, because I think a lot of people who have studied my personality would think that I'm not really the type of guy that likes to have fun. I do. I just don't like getting messy when I do it. So a controlled, mature sense of fun would be what I would like. But like those old Nickelodeon TV shows, where like the kids are dumped in slime, I would be like, oh, yuck, I hate getting messy. I have n I think I've hinted at what state I'm in, Zoe, but those videos are so unpopular that I don't think anyone remembers them anymore. I generally like to keep myself fairly anonymous. That's actually the main reason why I changed my YouTube name, was because I was afraid that people could track me with my original name. So that's why I changed it to the Catholic Nintendo Nerd at first. Then I changed it to Catholic Gaming Nerd because I was sick and tired of Nintendo's practices and didn't want to associate myself with that company. But Indiana, that has some really good memories for me because no, I'm thinking of Illinois, but Indiana still has good memories because a lot of good friends that I met on my first mission trip were from Indiana, and I got to meet one of her the following year, or not meet, reconnect with her the following year in person. Ooh, you guys, do you want to hear the story of how I met a girl on mission trip, thought I would never see her again, then ended up seeing her twice in the span of 3 days a year later? Because man, that was one of the most incredible stories of my entire life. Yeah. Okay. Well, in that case, so this is we're gonna have to go way back, turn back the clock to 2010, which was my very first mission trip. And I was in a really weird state of mind back then, where I more or less really hated girls because just a year previously they had more or less ruined my life. That's a long story. I don't really want to get into the details, but I became like super prejudiced and not the kind of guy you wanted to be around. That's for sure. And so going on the mission trip was a huge challenge for me because I was deliberately trying to say these girls could ruin my life again, but I'm more willing to see what God can do in my life. So I decided to just go anyway. And it was about Tuesday night at 6:45 in the evening. And I prayed to God. I said, God, I just never want to talk to a female again. Just get them all out of my life. I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it. Go away. And then 45 minutes later, I was surrounded by girls the rest of the camp. And that essentially changed my entire mind. And from that point on, I said, you know what? They actually might not be half bad. And one of the girls actually didn't say a whole lot, but it was the way she looked at me, not in this like, "Ooh, I'm crushing on you" way, but more like a, "You have value" kind of way. And I appreciated that look so much that it was really devastating to me when I was saying my goodbyes. I'm like, "Well, I guess this is farewell. You really helped change my life, and now I'm gonna be a totally different person when I get back." And it turned out that we didn't keep in touch for about a year. Then, near the end of that year, around like early 2011, I got her email address. And I was like, hey, so my big news is that I'm going to this conference that I've never been to. And she said, oh my gosh, so am I. So then we made plans to meet up in front of the area where they were having the dance party. And that ended up actually happening. We did end up meeting up in front of the dance party area, but we actually met up 2 days before then, completely by accident, because I didn't have a cell phone back then, and even if I did, I didn't know her number. I only had her email address, she wasn't on Facebook. So I was waiting for one of the modules to start, and the modules were basically a first come, first served type of basis. So you could pick your own seat. You didn't have to be in a group with anyone. You could go completely by yourself and you could sit wherever you wanted. So as I was sitting, just like waiting for it to happen, I noticed that this girl with blonde hair was walking by. And so I said, well, she doesn't look half bad. So maybe I'll go sit by her. And so when I did, not knowing who she was, because I have a terrible time recognizing faces. I generally can't recognize people by looking at their faces. It's more of their names or their personality. And then I said, "Is this seat taken?" And she turned to look at me, and I swear it was like time had went slow because at that moment it dawned on me and it dawned on her, I know you from mission trip. And then we gave each other like one of the longest, well, no, I wouldn't say long, but more of like it felt like the longest hug of my life, even though it was actually maybe more like a minute. And we were just like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, I can't believe out of 23,000 people, You and I just happened to run into each other here." And so we did an epic catch up. And yeah, well, I didn't use the S word because it was a Catholic conference, but I more or less said that, Kaede, yes. So then we hugged and we sat down in the bleachers. And then I said, "Hey, this is only the second day of the conference. You want to meet up again at our scheduled meeting place?" And she said, "Yeah, sure. That'll be totally fine." And then that happened. So we met up in front of the dance area and then we talked a bit more there. And then the amazing part of the story that I didn't tell you guys next was then my buddies from the mission trip after that one appeared. They came out of the dance hall and said, "Oh, hey, Paul, fancy seeing you here." And then the girls stood up and I introduced them to each other because they were both from separate mission trips. And I said, "Guys, I want you to meet this girl. Her name is Claire. So make of it what you will." I said, "This is Claire. This girl changed my life." And those were the last words I spoke to her in person before she walked off and I never saw her again. But hey, what great last words to end off on. And as the years progressed, I just kept getting better and better and much more likable as a person. So literally looks, they say looks can kill, but they can also save. And that girl, more or less, she she just looked at me like I was actually she looked at me like I was actually worth something. And at the time, I didn't think any girl thought I was worth something. I thought they all thought that, oh, he's just a guy, so we'll just ignore him. But turns out she saw value. Yeah, it was pretty sad. We talked a little bit more on Facebook after that, but nothing can beat meeting each other in person, that's for sure. And we don't really talk anymore, but I feel like if there ever was an opportunity where we were to meet each other again, it would probably feel like it was just yesterday. Because honestly, when I think about that day, I can still vividly remember stuff like the carpets and the bleachers. And I even remember that I even remember thinking about how much longer her hair was than mine and like pulling on my hair, saying like, come on, grow faster. I want to win this competition." Of course, since then I've met so many girls with shorter hair than me that it's totally fine. But yeah, that was actually I just finished that story, so very good timing, Solus. Um, I don't really watch a whole lot of Catholic YouTubers just because I find that their content is generally pretty boring. Like it's not exactly entertaining to watch because I feel like I'm just going to a church sermon. But the few Catholic YouTubers I have watched that I enjoy, I really liked Breaking in the Habit for a while. But I think his channel was aimed more towards people that were trying to learn about Catholicism, whereas I know pretty much everything there is to know. And so it's like I appreciate what he's doing, but I'm definitely not the target audience. Kaede, in your generation, you'd be surprised what some people like watching. Like I'm sure. Hello, Elizabeth. Do we know each other? Because I used to know someone with the last name of Henry. No, I'm thinking of someone else. That definitely wasn't you. I've studied Enneagram a little bit, but I don't know too much about it apart from knowing I know I'm not a type 7. That's probably the biggest thing I know. I think I'm either a type 1, a type 2, or a type 4. Don't quote me on that because I don't really know the difference. I can't say I've heard of Ascension Presents, but I have heard of Ascension Press. But I don't really read a lot of them. Oh, well, I'm glad you're here then, because I really, it's pretty rare of me to get this much traction on my live streams. So thank you, Elizabeth, for joining. What kind of videos do you generally watch on my channel? You may also have changed your name because knowing me, because I generally base everything on what I've already examined, I would have said something along the lines of Henry, I know that name from somewhere. I've never made videos about Enneagram, so you must be thinking of someone else. I make videos about Myers-Briggs, but Enneagram, that's totally outside my area of expertise, besides knowing that I'm not a 7. Father Mike Schmitz is amazing. Not a problem, not a problem. Yeah, Father Mike Schmitz, I really liked him because back when I lived in my old house, I helped out with a lot of kids coming into the church, and so I was a small group leader, and sometimes I was a sponsor for kids preparing for confirmation, and so we had to watch a lot of Father Mike, and I really liked how he used very, um, trendy trendy type subject matters. So he would, like, compare the gospel to baseball, which I thought was really cool. And then apparently he did, like, some major controversy, and he also gave a little bit of misinformation in one of his videos about confession. So I take everything he says with a grain of salt nowadays. But generally speaking, I like his style. Why, thank you, Elizabeth. I tend to get quite the bipolar reaction. That's for sure. I've had people that hated my guts before 2010. And ever since I turned my life around, as you literally came in after I told the story, but I decided to change my life around. Thank you, Kaede. I really appreciate hearing that. After I like went through that major breakthrough in 2010 on my first mission trip, I tried really hard to, I guess, treat people with more respect and try to atone for all the people that I mistreated. And now most people don't even know about that part of my past. And not only that, but I've deleted all of my pictures from before that time on Facebook. So now when people look at pictures of me, they say the new and improved Paul as opposed to the ew, not the prejudiced Paul. We don't want anything to do with him. And I've even begged and pleaded with God in my bed, just like, please just erase that part of my past completely. I don't want anyone to know what I used to be like. I just want to be a new person and a new identity and just completely start over from scratch, which is another reason why I really love YouTube, because you guys, whether intentionally or otherwise, you give me a chance to completely start over. Because, like, if I were to talk to my friends right now, they'd say something like, "Oh, I remember when you used to say this." And it's like, no, I don't say that anymore. I'm not that kind of person. Whereas you guys, you're like, oh, hey, it's the Paul from 2016. It's like, good enough, because that's when I got out of depression. Because my videos before 2016, I wouldn't say they were bad. They were just so spaced out that I wouldn't call myself a functioning YouTube channel. Just because I was so technically inadequate that I didn't know how to make my own videos back then. I would always pre-record them with a camera and then use the camera cable to directly upload them onto YouTube. Whereas it was in 2016 that I discovered Windows Movie Maker. And that basically how do I word this? It took me a long time to learn how to edit my videos, but eventually Evelyn came along. That's the girl with the stick, Kaede, so you can thank her if you ever meet her. She taught me how to edit, and ever since then, I think my video quality has jumped up significantly. Yeah, I have too, Kaede. I have too. And it's not just girls that have assaults and unfortunate situations happening to them. Why, thank you, Elizabeth. When you say growth, you mean growth is in personality, because I probably haven't grown this way since, oh dear, longer than I care to admit. But yeah, Kaede, if you want to hear the story, well, part of the story of how I overcame abuse as a male from females, um, you're the only Kaede Akamatsu in this chat, so I assume she must be talking about you. But yes, Kaede, if you want to hear some of my story about how I overcame abuse on me, a male, from females, and in some case other males, it's called "Can Males Be Objectified?" But it is intended for very mature audiences. So if you're faint of heart, you might not want to watch it. Well, I wouldn't hate the people, but I would hate the actions that they would do for sure. Self-realization was definitely something that was really hard for me to get used to at first, but then eventually I learned the value in evaluating if maybe I could use with a little bit of change. Because I'm the type of guy that I don't really like changing at all. I'm the type of guy that if like the other day, my mom said to me, "Paul, after I die, you're inheriting my house." And I said, "Do you think if I get a girlfriend, she'll move in?" She's like, "No." And I said, "Well, I guess I'm not getting a girlfriend then." So my desire to keep my house consistent was stronger than my desire to be in a relationship. So we'll see if that changes over time because for most of my life, I thought I wouldn't be in a relationship. But then I met my first crush in 2012, and that eventually, essentially confirmed that I was heterosexual when I thought I was asexual before that. Um, well, Kairi, I hope that whatever you changed to, it still feels authentic because if you're not authentic, then people might think that you're just doing that because you hate yourself. And it was uh, treating myself like I hated myself was one of the worst things I could have done in my depression. Well, it's not that I've never been introspective. I'm well, I know you don't. Just saying that that's what people might think, and that could really get you in trouble if that's the impression they get. I think we all have those times, really, but what matters is if we act on those impulses. Um, but yeah, what was I saying? I've always been introspective, but I would say that I usually was more or less introspective about how to maintain that controlled atmosphere. Whereas now I've become introspective on, do you think it's time for me to change? So I guess you could say I've changed how I introspect. Like, oh my goodness, thinking was one of my favorite things to do as a kid to the point where I would just be sitting down and people would be like, "What are you doing?" I'd say, "I'm thinking." Yeah, that's what I thought too, Kaede, but it turned out that was all just a lie from the depression itself. So I learned quickly to tell it to shut up. Yeah, Zoe, the reason I thought I was asexual was I think it was primarily because of the abuse and also just because I didn't see the logic behind being sexually attracted. And so because I didn't see it as logical, I didn't see it as possible. My brain tends to like weed out something that doesn't make practical sense. So I think I just said like, what is the point of falling in love? And after it hit me in 2012, it's like, okay, maybe this could be good after all. Oh man. Kaede, I'm gonna make this very clear right now because I don't think I have. Um, because I am an old man, my knowledge of different sexualities is extremely limiting. Basically, in my religion and my experience, we have male, female, that's about it. So if I say something that seems anti-LGBT or discriminatory, it's not my intention. It's more or less just that's how we grew up. And it's really difficult for us to get used to the concept of having to call someone a they. Like that was just simply unheard of when I was a kid. Like you were either a he or a she. And if you weren't, you were in a mental institution or you were a freak at the circus. Not to say I personally saw any of those examples, but basically, if you were like not heterosexual, you were basically you didn't exist, was how they treated it back then. So I do hope you guys will forgive me if it comes across as if I'm anti anyone that isn't heterosexual. I don't actually hate anyone. I just I don't like it when people mistreat the value of human life. That's where I draw the line. Because if you're gonna like treat someone as if they're less than human, that's where I'm just like, no, I can't condone that no matter what your desires are. And I think a lot of people on the LGBT spectrum think that people who are heterosexual, it's I'll save that for another video because that's a bit of a tangent. Um, I didn't used to get it either, Kaede, so I know how you feel. But basically, what heterosexual means, let me type this so I don't make a total fool of myself. Basically, when you're heterosexual, it means if you're a man, you want to. Exactly, Frater Vincentius, exactly. So, if you're a heterosexual male, that means you're only going to want to date or marry or be attracted to females. And if you're a heterosexual female, you're only going to want to date slash be attracted to. I hope I didn't mix that up with my dyslexia, but basically, you're only attracted to the opposite sex. Like if you're a man, you're not attracted to other men. If you're a woman, you're not attracted to other women. That's what heterosexuality is. So it's what your generation would call being straight, which is actually how God originally intended it. But then I actually had a theory that my transgender friend thought was a good theory. Now, it hasn't been proven. I could be wrong, but this is where I believe LGBT came into play because God intended everyone to be heterosexual in the beginning. But then the fall of man happened, and some of the earliest recorded sins in the Old Testament were based on people not knowing genetics. So they would like be incestual and having sex with their cousins and their sisters and stuff like that. And that I think is where the gay and lesbian and all these other genders, that's probably where a lot of their expressions came from, was from that disorder in not knowing that you really shouldn't be having sexual relations with your family. And my friend, who was transgender, said, "Huh, your theory may actually have some merit after all." Of course, they now hate me, but at the time, she really respected my opinion. Yeah, I would say so. I would have to agree with you, Frater, because I imagine it can't be easy to be in the minority. Because I've heard that like people who aren't people who are attracted to anything other than the opposite gender, they're often like in the 1% of humanity range, and they're treated so terribly. And it it comes across that we Catholics hate those people, but we're actually one of the most pro LGBT religions out of all the Christianities. We don't encourage making out with anything other than your wife, but we don't hate the person either, because that person may well have not chosen that, and that's just how they were born. Just the same way as I was born with brown hair, and even if I dyed it, that wouldn't change the fact that I have brown hair. So you can't hate someone because it's their natural self. Could you rephrase that, Kaede? The one with the stars in it? Because I'm not sure I understand what you're getting at. Yeah, there's studies about that, and I'm not the best person to talk to about it just because I'm very much an in the moment type of person. And so trying to see things from someone else's point of view is usually really hard for me. So like whenever I try to imagine, say, a male attracted to other males, I'm just like, um, I don't see the practical value in that, and that's also not me. Like I have even like turned down I've even turned down like all male gatherings just because I'm like, ew, no thanks. That's breeding grounds. Well, I think at the end of the day, Elizabeth, because I'm not an expert, I really don't want you guys to take anything I'm saying about sexuality as the gospel truth. But at the end of the day, my view is God very clearly designed man and woman to procreate. So even if you're not called to physically procreate, you can't deny that that's what your body was intended for. And so because men and men can't procreate and women also can't procreate, it makes me wonder maybe if gay and lesbian people just got roommates, there wouldn't be as much controversy. And that's the extent of what I'm willing to talk about at the moment. If you guys request it, I might make another video on it, but I think at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense why there should be anything more than roommates from the opposite gender because procreation is impossible. Maybe it's just because I'm not much of a physical sensation type of guy. Like I was saying earlier, Elizabeth, I never liked those shows on Nickelodeon where I would get covered in goop. Like I was like, ew, don't touch me. Uh, that is true. Yes, but it's not only a heterosexual phenomenon because bisexual people can be attracted to males or females, and I know of someone who is a bisexual female who is married to a man. So it's definitely possible. I don't think they've procreated yet though, but that's between her and him. I'm not gonna barge into their private love life. Not sure what you mean by that, Kaede, but I'm gonna keep that hidden for now in case that could mean something I don't want on this channel. I don't really know what a type 5 is, so if you're willing to explain, Elizabeth, I would be very grateful. I won't ask. That's totally between you and her. I'm not your dad, so I can't tell you what to do. But now that I think about it, even among heterosexual couples, there are different preferences. Because I know of some women who have been like happily in a relationship, but they still don't like being touched. And then you've got other women who have been married for years who are extremely physical. So even among that, oh, you mean you understand when I'm not sure I've heard that terminology before, Elizabeth, but I think I get what you're saying. Like you more or less need the physical attributes of the original heterosexual couple that God created to procreate. That's true, yeah. So, Elizabeth, would you mind explaining to me what a type 5 is? Because I really don't know the Enneagram. Like, I just know I'm not a type 7. That's the closest I can get. The moon. I've heard that the phases of the moon are actually responsible for people having mood swings. So, just curious if that's what you're referring to, Kaede, because that's where the term lunatic came from, because luna is the Latin word for moon. And so moon tick means basically someone who is crazy because of the moon. If you guys will excuse me for a minute, I'm going to go get a drink because my throat is a bit parched. But if you guys want to keep talking amongst yourselves, Elizabeth, if you can get on that description, that would be really great. I'll get back to you guys in just 1 minute. So we'll do a 1 minute BRB. So let me just type this in chat. Wow, I really mistyped that. Be right back. Getting a drink. Alrighty, here we go. Alrighty. All right, folks, glad to know most of you didn't leave during my absence. Let me just see what I missed. Okay, I didn't miss much, so that's nice. Um, um, that kind of sounds like me. Perceptive, definitely. Innovative, mm, depends on what it is. Secretive, I would definitely say I used to be. But then I realized that being too secretive could be the same thing as burying talents in in the Gospels. Isolated? No, that is not me at all. I am very surrounded by people that care about me and love me. Basic fear. Useless? Wouldn't say it's a fear, but it would definitely be something that would bother me. Helpless? I guess that would be kind of incapable. Well, I know what I'm capable of and what I'm not capable of. Um, Parts of it sound like me, but it doesn't seem too much like me. Your guess is as good as mine. So, if you want to go ahead and explain what a 1W2 is, that fits more like me. The basic fear of the one being corrupted. Because I definitely am always worried about if I make a mistake or if I do, say, something wrong. Like when I went to the swimming pool the other day, I asked more times than not, is this acceptable? Is this part of the rules? As opposed to, are you all right? Will this make you feel good? I was more concerned about upholding the rules than creating harmony. The way I said what, Kite? Because I say a lot of things funny. Four, what's a four? Well, I know whatever temperament is the one that whatever temperament is the one that gets really quick to anger and like lashes out when they're upset, that's the total opposite of me. Because I'm very calm and collected. I generally don't yell very much. And if I do, it's pretty darn rare. You have to like really push my buttons to get me to that point. I think the number of times I've legitimately like completely lost my temper was maybe twice in the past 3 years, something like that. But the first case was because someone was so exceedingly loyal or exceedingly unloyal that it just completely lost me. I tested as a melancholic choleric the last time I took the temperament test. I could be phlegmatic. I definitely know I'm a secondary choleric because I do like things to be organized and precise, and I definitely don't like chaotic atmospheres. Like if I'm in a situation where absolutely nothing is under my control, I'm going to feel very uncomfortable. But I'm very much the type of guy that I value when there's rules, codes of conduct, contracts, guidelines, something to have some semblance of what's right and wrong. Whoa, definitely don't want to be saying that on this stream, Kaede. Try not to try not to use anything that would be considered profanity. From what I've heard, and I could be wrong, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard that melancholic is like the temperament that thinks really deeply about what they feel, whereas phlegmatic is more of they think deeply about everything, which is not really me. Like it's not that I don't like thinking deeply, it's just that I don't like to think too deep. Like, I'll only think deeply as much as it needs to, but I'm not that kind of guy that'll overanalyze the possibility of alternate universes or won't look at Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows and say, is this promoting Marxism? Generally speaking, if I ever have had a theory about Deathly Hallows, it's because someone else brought it up first, and because I'm more of a fan of this book than they are, I'll look into it more. And then usually I never get around to putting those theories on YouTube. And the one time I did, I was wrong. So I'm not. If there's one thing you probably won't see a whole lot of on this channel going forward, it's theories. I definitely am not a sanguine because I heard that sanguines are like the party animals and the attention seekers and the people that are like constantly energetic. I don't know. That doesn't sound like me. I think I used to think I was phlegmatic just because I have moments where, like, if I'm excited about something, I get really excited. But sanguines seem to live in that perpetual desire to be happy and be entertained. And there are days when it's just like I would totally not mind if I just sat on a chair and had some peace and quiet and a fan blowing on my in my hair. Like that's good enough for me. And in fact, when I am in loud, chaotic, attention-filled environments, I'm often usually really uncomfortable. Yeah, that definitely is what I definitely perceive that about you, Kaede. You definitely seem like you enjoy interactions. Wait, wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. I read that wrong. I read that totally wrong. Wait, Kaede, if attention is a no-no, does that mean you don't want me talking to you? You want me to just ignore you going forward, or do you just not like too much attention? The funny thing about me is that my friend Jen, she made this system of taking every Myers-Briggs type and saying what each type's temperament chart would be. And I used to think I was ESTJ. That ended in 2015 when I made the realization that I'm much more pensive and not as demanding as they are. And so she was like, "Oh, well, if you're an ESTJ, you must be a choleric." But then she said, "But for a choleric, you're so easygoing. You don't grind my gears." And I'm like, "I don't know. So you consider me your friend, Kaede?" Huh. That's news to me. I always thought we were more like YouTube buddies, but I guess friends wouldn't be a terrible idea. Yeah, some people just give you. Whoa, what is with my shaky webcam? Most. Me and INFJs have a love hate relationship. On one hand, they tend to be great at drawing out like my deepest, darkest secrets and like making it feel like it's okay to be vulnerable. But on the other hand, a lot of times I have a lot of trouble understanding what they're trying to say. And then they like, when they try to justify their actions that don't make sense, they don't use sensible reasoning to explain it. They more or less relate to that common line that parents always said that aggravate their kids. Well, because I said so, don't question me. And it's like, you're really bad at explaining yourself. You know that? Why can't you just give a point by point, step by step instruction that makes logical sense? But they're also, I mean, INFJs are logical, but they put harmony over their need for logic. Are you talking about someone else besides the stream, Kaede? Because I hope the stream isn't interfering with your phone service. Oh, ESTJs drive me crazy. So I don't know how you handle it, Elizabeth, but I wish you luck in going forward because my thoughts on ESTJs are, well, because they have inferior feeling, they probably won't feel a thing if I punch them in the face. That's good. That is really good because I am really terrible at people that try to explain the big picture to me because I don't even know what the big picture is half the time. Well, some people you just can't justify your behavior toward, even if you're the most step by step person in the universe. But I appreciate it when INFJs at least try. Like, at the very least, they attempt to explain themselves rather than just like bowing down because it's conflict. Like a lot of times when I'm asking them to explain themselves, I'm not trying to be conflicting. I'm just trying to ask a question. And if they can't answer a basic question, then I'm going to be confused. Well, I meant it more as hyperbole, Kaede, because I probably would not have the strength to go through with the full punch. I would more or less use my insane ability to be the ultimate detective to essentially tear down their logic bit by bit. Like, man, the number of times I pointed out logical fallacies in the Danganronpa series, like, I say, now wait a minute. How is it possible to connect with this character when they have just flat cardboard cutouts? That doesn't lead to body motions. There's not enough room for a heart in there. How is this a relatable human being in the slightest? Yeah, I've definitely pointed that out quite a lot, Elizabeth, where because their introverted thinking is in the tertiary, it leads to them doing statements such as, if you'll give me a minute, then let me give you a perfect explanation. Or, well, obviously this is the right way, but I am sticking to my guns because I know it to be true. And it comes across as a little bit arrogant when they say it like that, because then I respond, so your logic is the only logic? Like, that does, that comes across as if you think you're a know it all. Whereas I like to think that if I don't know something, I'm not going to pretend that I know it just for the sake of proving that I'm not wrong. Oh, that's a good point, Kaede, because they did something like that in Goodbye Despair. Hmm, I'll have to look into that. Yeah, that is true. Introverted intuition is more or less a function I can understand on a conceptual basis, but as far as trying to use it, it's pretty much impossible. Because there have been a couple of times where I've tried to pretend to be an introverted intuitive, and then people are like, you're not even using proper English there. So I don't even really understand how to predict the future. Like, I'm that kind of guy where I'll just say, oh, well, my plans for this February, let me check my calendar. And then the calendar will like only show the next 3 weeks in advance. So I, generally speaking, wouldn't be able to tell you, like, oh, well, based on this amalgamation of data, I can prove that the coronavirus will end this month. I'll just be like, yeah, what did the statistics say? So my intuition tends to come from more, I would dare say, Kaede, you're probably going to put a huge LOL here, but I would say when I do use my intuition, it's a quieter version of Kaede's natural self. Like just very, very exuberant and yes, that is true. So it being the eighth means I'm just like literally getting massive migraines when people ask me to think about something too deeply. But yes, Kaede, when on the rare occasions when I give in to new experiences, I will do stuff like dancing and uh, singing and pretending to make kazoo noises. But it doesn't happen very often. It's usually only either when I'm with my sister or when I'm really trying to make a point that I don't know how to make any other way. Introverted sensing, the function that if you don't have it, most people don't even know how to describe it. But more or less, Zoe, if you're still here, I don't know if you're still here or not, but you actually told me you have dominant introverted sensing. But basically, the way I would describe it, being my dominant, is, well, just take these bookshelves, how everything is exactly where I want it, but it's not theories. Like, obviously, these amiibos are real amiibos, but they're placed in a way that they're relevant to how my brain wants them to be. and they're in such a way that I can consistently refer to the pattern as opposed to tomorrow Dark Samus has switched places with Joker. In other words, introverted sensing takes what is and compartmentalizes it. So for me, I might take, say, the entire song list of the Kid Icarus songs in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and just go over them again and again and again and think, what is this song a remake? Is this song orchestral? And just like categorizing everything. And how that conflicts with introverted intuition is that it's going to want to look forward and try to see, like, okay, how can this information gathered help me to understand how this relates to this and so on, and use it as a way to like create, like, say, the perfect career, the perfect job, the perfect blueprint. My type, on the other hand, already knows what has been a success and will say, okay, well, back in 2019, I had a really comfortable chair. So, how are we going to get that comfortable chair to be preserved into 2020? So do I. I love what is. I'm generally not the type of person that gets um, too speculative. And if I do, I usually tell myself I'm being stupid and then I stop. Yeah, Kaede, being in a good chair is really valuable to me. Like, whenever I go on a new retreat, I generally, one of the first things I ask is, what are the couches like? And then if there's a couch room, you bet I'll be the one that is sitting on all the couches trying to test out how comfortable they are and how serene they are and how it can lead to better conversations. Well, I mean, I guess that particular sentence structure is hard for me to relate to 100% because I can definitely say things like, oh, well, that's a baby shirt. So obviously, I'm not going to need that baby shirt now because I've, grown into adult size mediums. But if something is still able to be preserved, I think I think a good phrase that people would give our type is we would be the historians. Like, our types are probably the ones that invented museums because we just have such a love for the past that we want that past to continue. We're also the types that probably are the ones clamoring for a virtual console on Switch because we want to play the old stuff. And we also tend to have the best memories. Future generations, that's going to be really hard for me to think about because I'll probably be dead by then. So it's like, I mean, I couldn't have predicted that there would be a pandemic back in 2019. So what if there's something like a pandemic in the next generation that totally throws me off? Yeah, see you later, Solus. Sorry if we bothered you too much. Myers Briggs is one of my favorite things to talk about, so I can get pretty excited about it. But thank you so much for joining. I'll make sure to let you know if I ever set up a PayPal account. Yeah, I don't like supporting systems mainly for the sake of supporting systems. And that's where I think the ESTJ ISTJ difference comes in. So, like, for example, when every time Thanksgiving comes, I'm that I would agree with you, Elizabeth. Definitely would agree with you there. Um, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So, take Thanksgiving, for example. So, my dad, I'm not 100% sure what he is, but I think he's an ESTJ as well. I could be wrong because he tends to adjust his personality to whatever he needs to be. But when he's planning for Thanksgiving, he'll say, like, it's tradition. So, Matthew, make sure you're the one who's praying. Make sure we have a turkey. You didn't get a turkey, honey? No, we have to have a turkey. But he's not doing it because he personally thinks they need a turkey. It's because it's a tradition. I, on the other hand, will say, well, turkey may have been a tradition, but I don't like turkey. Can we get pizza? That would be more cost efficient. And you would also say, when we're at Thanksgiving and everyone is gathered together, I'll be like, why are we gathering together specifically for Thanksgiving. Why don't we gather together on an ordinary day so we don't have to decorate the place? Why are we even decorating the place at all? It's causing so much stress and budgeting and money. So, in that respect, I would say yes, that is an outdated tradition that is being preserved for the sake of tradition. Heck, if I had my way, I'd probably do nothing at all on Thanksgiving. But I also really like my siblings, and I really like my niece. She's growing so fast. Not in that way, but, like, it seems like every time I see her, my niece is, learning something new. She's about, I think, 4 months old now, so she's still a baby. So, obviously, she's not talking yet, but, oh boy, I can tell that she's gonna be a real bundle of joy when she finally does start talking. My sister-in-law said she's probably gonna have the overachiever personality because she's already trying to do things that theoretically she shouldn't be able to do because she's too young. So, Elizabeth, since it turns out that you like Myers-Briggs so much, is there something you'd like me to talk about specifically that you'd like to hear my input on? Yeah, yeah, I would agree. Because, yeah, I would have to agree with that. Because I have just claimed that they're being logical, but a lot of times they're actually being selfish. Like, instead, because if you were actually being logical, you would essentially disconnect yourself even from yourself and think of things strictly as it is. So, like for me, I'd say, this is a notebook. There's no two ways around it. And you use a notebook to write stuff. I mean, you could use it to fuel a fire, but you couldn't use a notebook to, say, feed a baby. So that's not a logical explanation to think that you can feed a baby with a notebook. Whereas INFJs, on the other hand, might say like, so here's an example of INFJ logic that I really hate. They might say something along the lines of, I personally am against the idea of hanging out with opposite gender unless we're in a relationship because I personally think that that is grounds for temptation. And it's just like, wait a minute, no, that's not necessarily grounds for temptation. That's just your perception of your personal temperance levels. Okay, I love how you like don't get a word of what we're saying. So you're interjecting with so many tangents. I love it so much. I really wish there were more people like you around because I could really use that in my life. Well, I didn't say you would, but I've heard INFJs make asinine remarks like that in the past where they claim that they're being logical, but it's really their own perception. Like I've heard other INFJs say stuff like, "Well, personally, Paul, I don't think we should hang out because there's a possibility that you might contract the virus and I might give it to my parents." And it's like, might, where is the actual data? Is it actually possible for me to catch the virus? Have you done your homework? So that's where I would say, like, do you not on my channel? Hmm. I'm kind of intrigued by your offer now, Kaede, because I liked the style of your other video. I just have to make sure that if it was on my channel, it would fit my rules. So, um, yeah, I I kind of I'm kind of excited to see what you would do next. Just make sure that you hmm, how do I word this in such a way that you would understand? I'll have to get back to you on that because at the moment you kind of caught me off guard. But I would say, generally speaking, that's okay, Kaede. I get it. Typos happen. But I would generally say, as long as your audience is aware that I am very much a male and don't try to pretend that I'm a female, then I think you're good with pretty much anything. I mean, obviously, I don't want you to say things about me that blatantly aren't true. Like if you say Paul hates bugs, and it's like, I don't hate bugs. That's not true. But if you want to do something like doing an animation of me sword fighting Evelyn, or if you want to use that lovely avatar of my long hair, like making a public speech, sure, go for it. But yes, I think risk assessment is definitely something that my type likes to do too. But we think about the actual possibility based on existing data. So whereas an INFJ would look at like, oh, here's a good example of introverted thinking versus extroverted thinking. So let's say you've got an ISTJ and an ISTP that are both driving in the car. The ISTP will see the speed limit sign, and being the introverted thinker, will say, speed limit's just a guideline. If we go 60, it'll be more in line with the flow of traffic. And I don't know. I don't feel like going slow. So see, it's very much all about them. It's that their personal reasoning has come to that conclusion. The ISTJ would say, wait a minute, what the heck are you doing? If you disobey that speed limit sign, then you're breaking the rules and we could get a ticket and the cops could come after us. And you're not in the slow-mo lane, so why are you going fast when you're in the right lane? And it's going to be recalling all of these rules that are more based on like legitimate concerns. Like going to jail is a definitive possibility that very much could happen. Tickets, you can't exactly pretend that tickets don't exist. Whereas the ISTP, they would acknowledge that they exist, but they'd say, that's no fun. I want to risk it. And even if I do get a ticket, it's not like I don't have the money to pay for it. Whereas the ISTJ will say, well, that money could have gone to something better if we hadn't taken the risk in the first place. That's a very interesting. I'm not normally the type to laugh at those kind of jokes, Kaede, but that one, that's a pretty funny one. I'm not gonna lie. Not gonna lie. That is pretty funny. Another example, Elizabeth, that I think shows the difference between extroverted and introverted thinking. Not necessarily how the INFJ would do it, but how like my type and your type would conflict would be, let's take my friend Kara, who's an INFJ, and me, the ISTJ. There was one time when we were at the swimming pool together, and the rules at the front desk had said, make sure you don't share a lane and make sure that you're in separate lanes. So I definitely relate to Chiaki more than the other characters in that game, Kaede. So I think that's a very valid connection. But anyway, as I was saying, so we were at the pool, and this was during the pandemic. So they said, make sure that you don't share a lane. So obviously, I said, well, Kara, that means we cannot share a lane. No ifs, ands, or buts. Those are the rules, and we're not going to disobey them. Kara, on the other hand, put her face to her, or her hand to her chin and said, well, if we sit on the steps, that wouldn't necessarily be in a lane, now would it? Or she'd say, like, well, what if we only go in the lane for a couple of seconds? Then, because no one's seeing us, we could technically get away with it. Whereas Carol was willing to break the rules because she was looking for all the loopholes. I was like, absolutely not. That is unacceptable to try and defy authority figures like that. So the extroverted thinker is going to be thinking about whoever is the smartest person. The introverted thinker is going to think, I've got the reasoning skills to figure this out on my own. So does that make more sense? Cool. But yes, Kaede, I don't think you were there for that particular stream, or maybe you were just using a different name, but someone was asking that, like, what talent would you be from Danganronpa? And of course, I said Ultimate Detective for game one and game three. Then when it came to game two, I said, oh, I'm the ultimate gamer. I'm definitely the Chiaki of the group. And also what I like about Chiaki is that she's very calm and she doesn't really lose her composure a lot, which reminds me a lot of myself. I generally don't get very agitated or angry. Generally speaking, when I make corrections to people, it's not in this like, "You stupid idiot, what are you doing?" It's more of a, "Could you please not do that, please?" Like, this very matter of fact, straightforward talking, because I don't like to be corrected either. So do to others what you'd have them to do to you. And that's how I would want to be corrected, so I correct others the way that I want to. Yeah, that's a clear example of introverted thinking there. Whereas I would not want to break the rules at all in any capacity, and feel I would feel like a dirty rotten sinner if I did break the rules. Well, we eventually compromised. We eventually got to the point where I said, "Okay, sitting on the stairs, yes, that is technically not a lane, so I guess that's fine because the rules didn't technically say not to sit on the stairs." And then we also made up a good compromise where I said, "We'll take turns swimming." So, like, when Kara was swimming, I would sit on the edge of the pool, and then I would say, like, "Okay, switch turns." So then when I would be swimming, she would sit on the edge of the pool, but we wouldn't swim very far away from each other so that we could still have like a conversation going. So I think I think introverted and extroverted thinking are always going to be clashing with each other, but they can learn how to get along if they accept that the other person's way of thinking isn't the only way of thinking. Yeah, that is true. I definitely think more about authority and objectivity and reason as opposed to thinking like, I'm not smart enough to figure this out on my own. Just let the cops tell me what to do. I'm also that type that when I'm chaperoning conferences, I'm going to be looking and double looking and being like enthralled by the rules of DVD that they always give us, saying, like, okay, this is what not to do, and this is what to do at the conference. And in a crisis situation, I'm usually the one that's like, and sometimes I'll even talk to the teenagers. I'll be like, okay, guys, this wasn't mentioned in the rules. What do you think we should do? So then I get their opinions because they clearly have more introverted thinking than me. But if there are rules and the teenagers are like, when should we be back by the flagpole? I'll say the program starts at 4. So just to be safe, let's do 15 minutes before because that's what it says in the rules. We don't want to be late. So it's much more rule following as opposed to system creating. Yeah, that's true. Because, like I said, it's like a shelf. We compartmentalize everything, everything is where it's supposed to be. Oh, man. I've been talking too much. I think I might have to. I think I might have to put a lid on it pretty soon. Kaida, you're hilarious. You know that? Like, I just really love your tangents so much. It's probably why I like Danielle so much. She's so random. Like, we could be talking about something, and she'll just bring up something totally unrelated. And for some reason, I can't help but laugh at it. Okay, I'm intrigued now, Elizabeth. So now I want to hear about this ISTP dating thing because I've heard that like INFJs secretly really like ISTPs but don't realize that they like them. So I want to hear about this. I'm not necessarily saying I don't like introverted thinking. I just I'm not smart enough to use it. I'll just say, "Hey, if you're good at it, cool, but don't ask me to figure this stuff out." Sometimes I wish I could be an ISTP, but I'm just too codependent to want to spontaneously start busting out the drum sets. I'd probably be like, "Ah, that would hurt my ears. That would probably be grounds for hearing aids." I don't like that idea. Okay, that's a question I have for you there. So what do you mean when you say to be emotionally connected? 'cause that's something I struggle to get. Because it's like, okay, I lost a grandma, you lost a grandma. Doesn't that mean we have a commonality? All right. Elizabeth, can you put that on hold? Because my family's about to leave and I want to make sure they say goodbye to them. So if you could send the remainder of your comments in the comment section after uploading. Oh, hi, Husky. I'm really sorry, but I have to get going because my family's about to leave and I want to say goodbye to them. But I'm really glad you're going back home. So if you want to talk further or if you want to start a conversation, just comment on one of my videos. So thank you very much for watching. Again, I'm really sorry, guys. I'm really sorry to cut this off, but I value my family a lot and I really want to say goodbye to them. So thank you very much. Kaede, I'm really glad that I could actually talk to you like this. Elizabeth, thank you for your insights. Husky, I hope to talk about more retro games. Yep. And Zoe, if you're still here, thank you for chiming in. So have a good night, everybody.